and why?
Should I go first?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I think, I'm an engineer. I make sensors, so clearly I'm probably biased a bit. But, I think combining physical sensors with artificial intelligence or machine learning and having these cyber physical sensors connected to the Internet of Things is really exciting because we have an opportunity to collect so much data to analyze how a home is doing, how if there's a leak, a water leak, or how the humidity and things are changing so that we can really prevent or potentially prevent disaster. Same thing in the farm field, looking at, making predictions for what fertilizer, how much fertilizer should be spread and how much should be used, what our crop yield might be, what kind of pathogen might be invading that field. We can get that data or starting to get that data before a catastrophe happens. And I think that could be very important to the insurance industry to help mitigate some of these risks.
Yes, analytics is a big topic. There are a variety of different techniques out there. And we have descriptive, we have predictive, and then we also have prescriptive analytics as well. To me, what is really fascinating in the past 10 years, you will see that not only we do well in the descriptive side, but I think we are doing extremely well on the predictive side, especially with the help of big data. And when you have so many data you can capture nowadays, and you leverage machine learning, AI, and they can do very sophisticated predictive modeling. So to me, I feel this is the most fascinating area. We are moving towards a better way to do the thing called prescriptive analytics, but I think right now there's still a lot of more work to be done in this area.
Thank you. When we talk about all things analytics, it can be hard to separate what is real, what is possible, what is doable from the hype. So what technologies, techniques do you see as overhyped at this stage of the game?
Yeah, I think, so I work in the realm of nanotechnology and making kind of these new materials to make sensors more sensitive, more selective, and more accurate. I think one of the things that's been a little bit overhyped or just maybe misunderstood is nanotechnology in general, and some people see it as perhaps a threat to our health and so forth. A lot of people have this viewpoint that nanotechnology is nanobots, or these small, smart devices that could go inside your body, gather information, maybe take you over or take over the world and so forth. But really those things aren't quite possible. Nanotechnology, if you think in the biomedical realm, having, we're such on a small scale, we couldn't really put a lot of technology in it, but we could change the surface structure of a drug so that it could selectively bind to a tumor cell, and then it could have a slow release and deliver a drug right to that tumor cell so that it doesn't kill other cells in the body. That's kind of what nanotechnology is. Or nanotechnology, I can change the surface of any material to make it hydrophilic or super hydrophobic, non-wetting. That can have a really big effect on an ion selective sensor, so I don't have a water layer build up on that sensor or other molecules kind of interfering in that sensor, so I have a more accurate sensor. So it's really about changing small chemistries to make materials better. It's not so much the idea of making these small robots that will swarm and kill us all.
Good to know. Thanks.
To me, I think I've been working in the area of AI, machine learning, for a long, long time. And I think nowadays, if you read the news, AI or deep learning is probably the most popular term right now in the news media. But at the same time, I would also argue that AI and deep learning is probably also the most hyped technology out there. Especially for those people who try to apply deep learning and AI blindly and then without really understanding the inner mechanism and also the result. How do you make sure the result is interpretable, right, by the human beings? When you have a model that can say, hey, this person has a strong risk of a cancer, right? And then you cannot pinpoint the reasons why, right? So then that could cause some problematic diagnosis, for the patients. So to me, rather than just dive into deep learning directly or using the AI blindly, I would strongly suggest the audience, just try a variety of different analytics techniques. Some of the techniques, in fact, if you do it creatively, smartly, with the complete set of data points, you could do a better modeling and much better, predictions, even comparable with deep learning techniques. So to me, I think this is the advice that I can give to you guys.
All right. What do you see as the greatest challenges facing the insurance industry in terms of analytics, be it devices and the data thrown off by the devices, the techniques, you name it?
Well, right now, I think the insurance industry is undergoing a lot of changes. In the past, this industry has been criticized for lack of use technology. And now you're going to see more and more insurance companies are adopting these new technologies, new devices, try to capture more data about the consumers and understand their behaviors, understand their, especially using a thing called behavior economics to really try to derive a risk model to assess the risks for the individuals. And so I think that these kind of things could be very, very beneficial. And but at the same time, though, we potentially could run into the problems where you could have this thing called a digital divide, where some people are very hesitating to use the technology, other people are not afraid at all. So when you have this such a diverse set of populations, how to educate people, how to let them aware, the advantages of using this type of things, train them, educate them, I think is very, very important. Unless everybody become adopter of this new technology and they truly believe this, then you're going to run into all kind of hurdles, try to, implementing this as a way to capture the data. So educate people, work with them, let them aware of this, the benefit of using this. I think that's going to be very, very beneficial. For example, one of the things that I tried when I was buying my car insurance, I work with Progressive. They sent me this small gadget that can capture my driving behavior, right? One of the incentives for me to use this, gadget is because, they said, you can potentially receive some discount for your insurance premium, and I signed it up, and I did got 10% insurance premium, right? So to me, that's a good benefit for me, right? But on the other hand, though, I understand why the insurance want to do that is because they want to capture more data about me, try to get a better understanding about me. So this kind of a personalized insurance model is beneficial, and at the same time, though, you have to let the consumers aware, what are you going to do with this data? You're going to do only the things you promised to do, right? You cannot do the things that using the data and sell it to somebody else. This is called the functional creep, kind of concept. You can't, do beyond, what you promised to do. So this is the understanding the risk, understanding the privacy issues is very, very critical.
Yeah. Just to kind of, add to that too. When we make sensor networks, we have some grants trying to make sensors for the elderly, for example, and it's you always have to these are in-field sensors that may be wearables that might be used throughout the home, and you have to make them in a way that they are user-friendly and cater them for those who are going to use them, and that can always be an issue. My mom, she hardly gets on the internet. Doesn't really trust the internet so much. And then there's people, are really tech savvy. So, could they use a wearable device? Will they actually wear it? Those are all things, we try to have to tailor, and that's gonna, could potentially limit, what data an insurance company could get from the end users. How good is their compliance? So that's something involved, and then also you kind of mentioned cybersecurity as well. We're trying to put sensors, distributed networks throughout from a farm field to biomedical or bioanalytical data of a person, that's a lot of data that's put onto the web, and someone could get access to that. So it's, and that cybersecurity, making sure it's secure, also gives more confidence in that user that they'll actually use it. So those things kind of need to go hand in hand, and cybersecurity needs to be upfront and built into the sensor systems from the start. Otherwise, if it's a back end thing, it just doesn't work so well. So I think those two things as well should be looked at.
All right, so going a little deeper on that theme of cybersecurity and privacy when it comes to generating and collecting and then analyzing all this data that we want to use for analytics purposes, what are the primary privacy concerns relevant to the work that both of you do? And what advice do you have for the audience in terms of really mitigating those concerns?
One of the things that we are experiencing right now, and you saw the news about Facebook, I think we can learn a whole lot from the lessons from Facebook. When they talk about the data, gathering, when they talk about user privacy, and on their policy, basically they just said everything they can do in terms of ensure that the user privacy is going to be protected. But then in the end, when you look at the end result, that sometimes they do just go beyond what they promised. And then they run into all kinds of issues at this moment. So I think for the insurance industries, when we do this kind of data gathering and data modeling, we're going to face potentially the same type of issue, right? Are you really doing the things you promised to do? I really do what you say, right? And say what you do, right? So this is the fundamental issue. If the consumers nowadays, have access to the internet and have access to pretty much everything, they can find out every details, about the business practice that we do business. If there's any functional creep, if there's anything scandal, got to spread out, then there could be all kinds of social media crises that we have to deal with. And so these are the things that for us, as the technology developer, as the insurance providers, we have to be very, very cautious in terms of the way we handle the data, the way we protect the data, the way we're going to use the data, right? And then we want to keep the transparency in place. Also let the user know. And also, if they say, if you did not want to participate, you can always have the option to opt out. Give the consumers the kind of the options there. Let them know what they're going to do. So I think that's going to be very, very critical. So I taught the course on information system security, information system auditing in the past when I was at Virginia Tech. We tend to always emphasize the two phrases, do what you say and say what you do. So to me, that's a good advice that I can give to a lot of you guys in this room.
Yeah, and that, I definitely agree with that. I do more the physical sensors, so I don't work on implementing cybersecurity or doing artificial intelligence and so forth, but we do have collaborators that do that. But I can say, at least from our side, it is a challenge, and I think being direct and upfront and letting the consumer know, what data we are collecting, and how that may or may not be sensitive, and what we're going to do with that, and being upfront is so important, and really building into your systems the proper cybersecurity is so key, and it is going to be an increasing challenge, because to make, for these sensor systems to make a proper machine learning algorithm, we want more and more data, and we want a more complete picture. If I want a sensor on someone to see how their wound healing is occurring and how they're going through each stage of that wound healing, I want a lot of different metrics to be measured and biochemicals to be measured. So it's not just one stream of data; it's from multiple sensors, and so you could get potentially a more complete picture of that user. So therefore, even more, it's important to have proper cybersecurity in place.
All right. So my next question is about how industry can partner with the universities and academia in exploring the space further, making more innovations. But I first want to be shameless and plug for the insurance industry in particular. Iowa State is going to welcome its first cohort, if you will, of actuarial science majors in the undergrad program starting in August. So we hope to help you with your workforce and talent development needs. Both universities have strong programs in analytics at all levels, from undergrad to grad certificates to full-fledged master's programs. So I'm sure all of us would be thrilled to talk about that after the panel. But what ways in terms of research and outreach can both Iowa State and Iowa work with our industry partners in terms of furthering our knowledge and use and application of analytics? Go ahead.
So University of Iowa, and especially for me as a Tippie College business faculty member, we do partner with industry a lot. And we welcome the capstone project ideas, especially for the master program. We have a master program on business analytics. We work with the industry partners, try to tackle some real-world problems. So if you have any real-world problems that need some solutions using analytics, just reach out to us, and then we are more than happy to talk to you further, and then maybe get your project, as one of the capstone ideas, not only for the master level, but also for the undergraduate as well. At the same time, Tippie College of Business has a variety of faculty members specializing in different type of analytics. And so if you want to do descriptive, predictive, machine learning, AI, natural language processing, and we have a great number of faculty members who specialize in these areas. And one of the faculty members in Tippie College of Business, is right now is doing the thing called interpretable machine learning, and which means that when you do machine learning, when you do AI, not only are we going to see the result, okay, which is a very great result in terms of predictive performance, but at the same time, how can we ensure that the model that we derive is going to be interpretable, by the human beings, by the domain expertise. So that's something that I think is going to be the future of the research, where the machine learning, AI, researchers going to really dive into this area, try to make this result, the model, more interpretable. And that way, when you try to deploy that in the field, then okay, why this model is going to work, why this model can be potentially be useful for our insurance business. So we do look forward to work with the industry partners, try to not only for the course project, but also at the same time we can do collaborative research as well. We can also do sponsored research. In the past, when I was at Virginia Tech, I worked a lot with the industry partners. We just do cutting-edge research, and try to tackle some of the problems. On the slide that I shared with you on the website, I did talk about two projects. One is about the fraud risk investigation for the financial industries, and the second project is about the healthcare, physician fraud in terms of claims. And those projects are basically a partnership from the industry partners. We work with them, and then we try to tackle these real-world problems. And then the solutions we deliver is very impressive. And then most of the partners are very, very happy with the end result in the deliverables. So we're looking forward to working with you guys.
Yeah, likewise at Iowa State University, engineering being applied science, we team up with a lot of different industry partners. We do have capstone engineering classes for undergraduates where they as teams, they work on a very specific project that an industry, typically in Iowa, has put together for them, and that's kind of a nice benefit for them, that they can get some insight and some expertise that maybe they don't have in their company. Likewise, in my lab, almost half of the research dollars that I need to bring in to support my lab comes from industry partners, especially in the agricultural sector, working with, fertilizer ion sensors to foodborne pathogen sensors. There's companies that fund our students, that fund my PhD students, my postdocs, and get exclusive license to that technology, and we sign those agreements over, and we have in place, pretty, I think, good and fair agreements to get access and to get licenses to the intellectual property that's made from these projects. So we're definitely always looking to partner and help, make the next engineers. And it's great for these students too, because not only are they working on a real neat and engineering project, but they also have an opportunity to potentially work for those companies afterwards. So I think those companies like that as well. They have an opportunity to kind of test drive, so to speak, a student, and then have a fresh PhD working in their facility who really knows the technology.
I want to add on one more thoughts. I know a lot of the industry partners, they are very, very concerned about the intellectual property as part of the research project. So when you work with either Iowa State or University of Iowa, we want to let you know that we have a flexible kind of a research policy in place. And if you're really concerned about intellectual property as a result from the sponsored research, we can always tailor this agreement to your need. And we can give you either exclusive, kind of a, rights to use the intellectual property, or we can just give the intellectual property to you as part of this sponsored research. So talk to us, and then we can really get things going.
All right. So at this point, I'd like to open it up to the audience for questions for the panel. We have two students that are going to help with the microphone, so.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Bernie Birnbaum with the Center for Economic Justice, a consumer organization. I have two questions. The first is, would the panelists agree with this statement? An algorithm is only as good as the data it works with. AI, machine learning, predictive analytics can inherit the prejudices of prior decision makers or reflect the widespread biases that persist in society at large. Often the patterns discovered are simply pre-existing societal patterns of inequality and exclusion. Unthinking reliance on algorithms can deny members of vulnerable groups full participation in society. So my question is, do you agree with that? And if you do, what techniques are necessary to assure that predictive analytics do not reflect and replicate historic discrimination?
Great question, Patrick. You want to jump at that one?
This is a great question. It's a very tough question. And as we all know, I think there's an old saying, garbage in, garbage out. All right? So this is the true no matter what you do. And so for us, well, especially in this predictive modeling area, when we're working with data, all right, ensuring that data quality is crucial. And also ensure that we have a complete capture of all the data, and in an objective way, not subjective way, and it's also very crucial. Many times, when we deal with the modeling, when we run the academic exercise, sometimes we have to leave out a few of the missing data points. When we leave out those missing data points, essentially we're going to have a model that potentially going to have a bias. So this kind of a sampling bias, predictive modeling in terms of the result bias, is a matter of fact, and I cannot deny that. So that's why, when we do this kind of a data capturing process, we want to make sure that this whole process is going to be done in a pervasive, manner. Okay, we're going to try to capture, from everybody involved, and we're going to ensure that the data are going to be cleaned, right? We're going to do enough pre-processing to ensure that the data really capture the things we try to measure, right? Once we have done that, then you can go through this modeling process and then run this kind of analysis. If you cannot get a complete picture of the data, if you cannot get a high quality data, then the model, to me, is going to be less useful.
Okay, so I have a follow-up on that, but I have another question. Are market forces sufficient to prompt insurers to say what they do what they say, and use complete transparency regarding personal consumer data collection? Or are laws or regulations necessary to ensure a level playing field so that the folks who are willing to stretch the bounds don't have a competitive advantage versus the ones who want to do the right thing by consumers? Thank you.
I think we're going to leave the question to the audience to answer, right?
Well, so I'll throw in a little bit of my perspective. And this is where academics really vary in terms, and I'll speak for my business school colleagues. There are some that believe absolutely the free market is the answer to everything. And then there's those of us who feel that I think history has shown that there is a role for appropriate regulation. Going back to Patrick's perspective, when I teach classes in analytics, even database, even simple Java programming, I really try to emphasize to my students that technology is only as good as the human being telling it what to do. And this is where I'm not worried about the robots taking over all our jobs and putting all the accountants out of work, because the human perspective, the human experience, the domain experts, the legal and regulatory and ethics expertise is critical, so we don't just repeat the mistakes of the past and continue making even new poor decisions when it comes to equity and fairness, and making sure we do right by the social welfare in addition to just profit maximization. There's more to society than that. So we do try to be very careful to explain to students and to people we work with that it's not just this magic box where you put a bunch of stuff in, garbage out, but we have to take such great care in making sure we're putting together good representative data sets. We're applying the appropriate algorithms and models that accurately portray what we're going to do. We're aware of all the fundamental issues that could come up from the realms of statistics and understanding what distributions we're using and the limitations to those distributions so that good decisions can come out. So that was just my 2 cents. But there is great variety of opinion on this issue. Oh, now there's a whole bunch of questions. All right.
Thank you. Patrick, I want you to, Jonathan, both of you, when you're looking at modeling data, so there are people like you who are comfortable taking from progressive, putting the digital gadget. There's like Jonathan's mom, she doesn't trust or doesn't want to use it. So when you're looking at the data, you collected only from people like Patrick. So you're missing out people like Jonathan's mom, or there could be people who are bad drivers, right? So what can you tell the insurance people when you're modeling? So they got data only from Patrick's, not from the others. And how do you tweak your models to accommodate for Jonathan's mom and those bad drivers?
This is a very hard question. This is the things in academics called a selection bias. So when you have the samples only tailored for a particular set of population, not the entire population, your model is only good for that particular set of population. In the insurance industries, I think there's a thing called pay to play, right? Or you play to pay, those kind of things. And so I think right now the philosophy is if you participate, we're going to give you some incentives to participate. We're going to give you some discount, so that you can, be rewarded. All right. This is how we get people to jump into this. But I think we can engage in a number of things. Like number one, for example, you can do word of mouth, right? If you try progressive, this kind of gadget, you receive some discount. You share that with your neighbors. You share that with your friend, and let them jump into this. I think this kind of word of mouth effect is very, very popular, very, very effective nowadays. And then the second thing is, you can also make the technology more easy to use, more pervasive. So for example, even though I don't know much about the car, I know how to just follow this diagram. I can just plug in this thing into my car, all right? And then just forget about the rest. And then you just wait for your discount to come, okay? So if you can make this thing as easy to use, for the general, populations, you could, overcome this technology hurdle for a lot of the people, especially for the older generations. All right, so this is the things that we can do, make the technology user-friendly, not only to the technology-savvy people, but also to the common users, as well.
Yeah, exactly. And then, to overcome that selection bias or to increase the pool of users so that you have more data and more accurate, analysis of the population in general, we're trying to make the sensors more user-friendly. So if, and someone to comply with it. For example, if a doctor has a patient that needs them to take a particular drug to treat a certain disease, maybe they have to take a drop of blood and do a finger prick and run it through an assay. That's a lot of work, and then or maybe they have to take medicine, and maybe they're not compliant with that easy as well. Where we're trying to make sensors that might be wearable that could detect what levels of certain biomarkers are in their superstitial fluid, so they don't have to prick their finger, and then potentially we could have an automated system that could deliver a drug. So you can see how we can use technology or automation to make it more and more easier for the end user to use, so that there is more compliance. And I guess from a sensor aspect, we're just trying to make it increase the compliance, increase the userness, and tailor that in. Obviously there's more cost involved with some of those more automated systems, so tailored in so that it's cost effective, but the end user also comply with it.
So my question is about your actuarial science program. And I'm going to speak in generalities just to illustrate the point. So historically, carriers have brought in data science teams to work with the actuaries, to look at different kinds of things at the carrier. And so you've got, historically, the actuaries were not trained in data science techniques, and then the data scientists don't know anything about insurance. So the ability for those groups to effectively collaborate, it requires a lot of learning. They all have to go through a steep learning curve to try to understand the different groups. So is this a problem that you're thinking about in your actuarial program, and how, if so, how are you going to address it?
That's a great question, and we'll have to mic up Rahul for the full details. But the actuarial science major is housed in the Ivy College of Business. So all actuarial science majors will have to have our business core. And part of our business core are a few courses that touch or deeply explore analytics. So they have to take, it used to be the course probably a lot of us had that was PowerPoint and Word. Now it is exclusively the advanced functions of Excel and database. Then they have to take an information systems course, which is including data visualization such as Tableau, as well as additional data capabilities. Furthermore, Iowa State does have, they just launched last year, a new major in data science. There's also a minor available. A minor in business analytics will launch, and that'll be housed in the Ivy College of Business next month. The major it's at the Board of Regents for approval. We anticipate that'll launch in January 2020. One thing that I know Tippie is probably the exact same way, we really encourage students to think about, rather than the word or, think about the word and. So while you're in your undergraduate program, when you have electives, which students have some, actuarial science, not nearly as many, we do want them to graduate in less than 10 years. Use those to beef up the places that you know that the companies you're interning for, that you're doing service projects or capstone projects for, are looking for skills. So we really make courses in data, cybersecurity, various analytics functions easily available to those students as well. And certainly we encourage them to pursue those. That's a great question.
And one thing I can add on, nowadays, you're going to find out there's a lot of students try to do the thing called a major and a minor. So we can always encourage students, who, for example, majoring in actuarial science, they can also do a minor on analytics. So to me, I think that's going to be a great combination. And for example, some of the accounting students, who are very good in the accounting major, at the same time, they are also taking more and more analytical courses. That way, those students are going to be better prepared for the industry world. So to me, I think this kind of hybrid model really going to thrive in the future. So as long as we can, through this proper marketing, educate the next generation, educate the parents, hey, this is going to be a great combination for our students for their future jobs. I think that's going to be the things we want to do.
We jokingly call the golden combination right now, since actuarial science starts in August, is to dual major in accounting and information systems and get a minor in cybersecurity. We work very closely with our colleagues across campus to make sure the curricula fit, make sure there's no prerequisite conflicts, so students can get out in 4 years, assuming they didn't change their major 50 times like I did, and really just go in head first. We know that there's huge industry demand for talent like this.
Can I ask a question for you, both of you guys? We talked about a lot of machine learning and deep learning, and that's a great algorithms, and that's the biggest evolving market today regarding the hypes. Okay, but again, the insurance industry have a paper data from the 30 of the previous century, I believe. And can we agree that the majority of the company were storing the data only from the 90s? But still, most of the companies perhaps don't want to say that, but they're using the data as a data warehouse format and still making decisions on simple analytics. Because the challenging how to use non-analytical data or friendly data to use new algorithms. So what is your best advice how to do the data preparation to make it shorter and smarter to have the advantages of machine learning and deep learning on exist data?
Data migration, the legacy systems existing nowadays is a huge problem. And I think nowadays, a lot of the companies are hiring the thing called data analyst, who are have got trained in this database modeling, and then they're going to write a script, essentially to migrate the data from one legacy system to the another systems. Those software developers, database developers, are essentially the middleman. And if you can find those right people, and they will be a great asset to your company to convert those data, into the proper format, and then you can leverage the latest analytics for that. I want to be an advocate for my wife. She's a data analyst. She does the work for American Express, and she does all kinds of this kind of data transformation for her entire career. And she benefits a lot by learning these different systems, and then she also helped the company save a lot of money. Because sometimes you for the legacy systems, you have to keep them, due to the historical reasons, right? But at the same time, we all move to the new, AI generation. So how can we still allow the system to talk to each other, right? So you have to build some middleware in the middle to do these kind of things. I think to me, having the people with this kind of skill set is going to be very valuable for the company to succeed.
I had a quick question, kind of building off of that a little bit. So one of the things in the life insurance industry that we struggle with in the data scientist space is the ability to create experience studies and to have predictive power off of retroactive data. And in a lot of ways, we're still looking in the rearview mirror to look forward. And it becomes a little mind-boggling when we realize that the rates of technological change mean that there are people alive today that may end up passing away due to an interaction with a technology that has yet to be invented, 60 years from now, 80 years from now. So do you have any technologies or approaches, more specifically than just AI or distributed ledgers or things, that are most promising for industries like ours in order to reduce the cycle time for creating robust longitudinal insights? And if you have any case studies, that would be great as well.
That is a great question.
I don't think I know the answer, to be honest with you. But one thing I can tell with you right now, in the deep learning, there's a thing called LSTM model, long-term, short-term memory model. That model is great for time series and longitudinal data forecasting, for time series modeling. And I would encourage you to try the LSTM model to see whether that model can be used for your life insurance, this kind of domains. To me, I think it's a fascinating technique, and it can potentially help you to address this kind of issue.
Hi, my name is Keith. I'm with Mass Mutual Ventures, and I'm curious if there's like top 3 or top 5 ventures in cybersecurity, insurtech, fintech that you've identified as kind of critical players in solving some of the problems addressed today.
We should have asked this question at the Prometheus Awards the Technology Association of Iowa put on a few weeks ago. That is a great question. Obviously Des Moines, there's a lot going on with the startup environment. There's a lot of exciting things going on in the research park up in Ames, as well as various corners of the state. I can't give you any specific company names, but there is a lot of exciting work going on, especially work that bridges the research institutions at Iowa State, Northern Iowa, that brings in especially a lot of our undergraduate and master's students, because they're really, really, really excited about entrepreneurship, as is the leaders, the university and political leaders of the state. So I may have to get back to you on that question, but it's a great one.
One thing I can give for the audience here, I do encourage all of you guys who work in the insurtech area, give us some tips, insights about what you are doing. We're going to compile all this together. We're going to give you another panel next year. And then we're going to share the findings to you so that you can all benefit from this. Because right now, there's a lot of things are done inside the house, proprietarily. We don't share with each other, right? But if you look at the computer scientist field, you look at the IT field, they open source a lot of the things, right? You don't have to share your algorithm with us. You just share what kind of technology you are using for what purposes. And then we're going to build this taxonomy for you, and then we're going to map this into different domains. I think that, to me, that's going to greatly help the entire industry.
I suggest you just read about open insurance, like open banking. That's a new industry around the world that carriers all around the world are joining to this, I don't know how to call them, this group, and sharing this knowledge to create one standard of open insurance. Sorry.
So my question was a little bit about a crystal ball. So if you go out 10, 15, 20 years, you think about sensors and the nanotechnology that you specialize in, or in data collection, data modeling, things. What do you see as the biggest trends that we're not paying attention to today that you'll see 10 to 20 years from now?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not exactly sure what maybe that we may not be looking at right now, but I think in terms of the sensor field, combining physical sensors with the Internet of Things, so cyber physical systems, I feel like that's just going to become more and more common day. We're doing that, we've probably looked at that more in the biomedical realm, but now that's happening much more in the agricultural realm, especially it's pertinent here to Iowa, having distributed networks out in the farm field and being able to tell, what inputs in terms of fertilizer, pesticides are going in, and then what's, not being used or running off into streams and lakes and so forth. So I feel like that is probably, combining the cyber physical systems is probably what's going to be occurring here in the next 10 to 15 years. But I feel like that's maybe what you knew. So I, besides that, that's probably my input. Yeah.
All right, so we're out of time, but thank you for such great questions. And I know I'll be around for a little bit, and so we're happy to chit-chat out in the hallway. Thank you so much.